Aloha and welcome to the Hawaii County Committee on the Status of Women. We're here today to discuss Mālama Makuahine Year of the Mother 2022 and the position of mothers in the military as well as veterans for Veterans Day this November 2022. And so Cindy Serrano Roberts is here to explain her role as a mother and as a female in the armed forces, as well as what she does with the United Nations on behalf of women. So we welcome you, Cindy. Aloha.
Aloha, Shana. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm just so excited to chat about the status of women in Hawaii and through the lens of a combat veteran, mom and wife, and community advocate with the United Nations Association. So thank you so much for having me today. I have served, I served for about 25 years, and I served through various stages of life. When I first enlisted, I was single. I wasn't married. I didn't have a family. And it was fun. You know, it was very fun to be able to travel and just kind of see the world. And, you know, when I got my commission and started serving as an officer, you know, shortly after I met my husband. And he is also military. He's in the United States Space Force. And so that was very interesting, going from being a single airman to not really kind of having anything to consider when you're thinking about what job you want next, where you want to live, you know, do you want to deploy? Do you want to volunteer for an assignment? And now, you know, you have another person that, you know, you're trying to balance this, you know, dual career with. And so that was really interesting. We got married in Washington, D.C. when we were working at the Pentagon. So we were both very, very busy. And we knew we wanted to start a family. So we got pregnant with our daughter, who's almost 4 now. And that served as another interesting factor into our assignments and where we would go, where we could go, where we can't go, where we could go and remain a family without having to break our joint spouse, which means basically saying that we're both okay with going to different assignments, which we decided we didn't want to do. And then COVID hit. And I think when COVID hit, it was a very interesting time that uncovered a lot of challenges that families had in the military. So when COVID hit about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, shortly after, the daycare shut down. And we learned that my husband was considered essential personnel in his career field, in his job, and I was considered as a personnelist, or like an admin officer, not essential, which was very interesting because we were not both considered essential. We could not use the daycare on base, and there were no other daycare options. And so I had to work from home, and my husband had to go into the office. And again, this was before the vaccine was discovered, and we were still learning a lot about COVID-19 and how it was transmitted and the effects of it. So it was a really interesting time because I was still working from home full time, and my daughter at the time was about 1. So she had just started walking, and she required a lot of attention, and I was so happy to be able to give it to her. But we had to get very creative with the work schedule. So I typically got online and I worked while she was sleeping during the day and after she went to bed at night. And so it was an interesting time, and something that a conversation that I had the opportunity to be a part of with the Secretary of the Air Force's Manpower and Reserve chief at the time were, you know, how do we address some of the challenges that we're seeing with childcare in the military? Because it became very clear that women serving started taking on the brunt of the work fallout, if you want to say fallout, you know, but the work and the childcare issues that we were seeing with so many daycares that were closed. And one of the things that that we saw was men at a disproportionate rate were getting tracked into rated positions that automatically made them essential, and women were traditionally being tracked into support positions which were non-essential. And so now when we see, when we're experiencing a pandemic as a country and across the world, we're really seeing what that does, that, whether it's an unconscious bias or, whatever created those tracks from the beginning for men and women and minorities being tracked as non-essential personnel. So when we found ourselves in this sort of state of emergency during the pandemic, it was kind of too late, right? Because I was already considered non-essential. He's considered essential. So we didn't have the opportunity to say, okay, well, Cindy, you go to work and I'll stay home today, with the little one. So that was a little bit of a challenge, staying home during COVID. I didn't really have the choice. I had to stay home. And for anyone who may have been in that position, when you're home and your partner's not home, I don't know, there's an opportunity if you want to do the laundry, to cook, right? Like it turns into this sort of snowball effect of, that creates, it's very easy to create a disproportionate workload from home. So that was that this was kind of an interesting time. And as I look back on my career, it allowed me to serve using different lenses. Some of the challenges and benefits of being a single airman, of being a dual military couple, and then being a dual military couple with a child, and being recently retired. I stay home now, and I keep my daughter home with me sometimes because she's in preschool, and my husband still serves. And so now I kind of have this very, very different lens, a new lens of being a spouse and a veteran, and a mom all in one. And so it's been wonderful to be able to turn around and encourage and mentor young professionals and, younger airmen that are coming up through the ranks, and share with them the things that I learned along the way, how to be successful, and the importance of even outsourcing when you're married and you're dual military. It's really important to find ways to, in our experience, to outsource as much as possible so that you can maximize the time at home with your kids and with your family. I think one of the first things that I did when I started to become more literate in diversity, inclusion, equity, and accessibility is when I received orders to work at the Pentagon and stand up the Air Force's first ever diversity and inclusion office. And it was at that time, helping to stand that office up and, go through training and be able to put words to feelings that I felt. I think we've all heard that quote, we won't always remember what people say, but we'll remember how people made us feel, right? And it would, as I was going through and standing up the office and learning more about what equitable opportunities look like and what an inclusive organization looks like, it really kind of caused me to reflect back on experiences that I had where I really didn't understand why maybe I didn't get the same opportunities as my male counterparts, even though I felt like I was working just as hard, if not harder. And I really started to learn the importance of just as specifically as a woman, understanding how to decode the organizational environment and the style of the environment, and how to fit into it, and how to speak that same language as my male counterparts, and what it looks like for me to show emotion in a work center versus for a man to show the same emotion, and how it's looked at differently, even if I am passionate and I'm showing passion, right? I'm not talking about crying at work. I'm talking about feeling very strongly about a topic and allowing that passion to shine through, and how it's seen versus a male counterpart that's just as passionate about something. And when it's shined through, the way that it's perhaps embraced versus me looking emotional, even though I'm feeling very passionate about this program that, you know, I am a part of. And so while I was working at the Pentagon, I learned about the Women's Initiative team and I joined it. And the purpose of the Women's Initiative team was to identify barriers that hinder women from participating and flourishing in uniform, and then removing them by changing policy or implementing policy and guidance. And I, during that season of working, doing policy in the Department of the Air Force at the Pentagon, it equipped me to really understand the environment and understand the importance of having mentors that can be great soundboards and can give me sanity checks, and, you know, were a lot more seasoned than I was, whether they're peer mentors or they're more senior officers or enlisted. And just to kind of understand, like, okay, you know, how can I be successful in this environment, and not just be successful for myself, but bring other women along, bring other underrepresented demographics along, and then learning the importance of sponsorship, and quite honestly, the necessity of sponsorship. Someone who will speak your name in a room full of opportunities, somebody who will turn around and take you by the hand and bring you into a room with them and endorse you and co-sign on your abilities that may have always been there, but just not seen by the right people. And so that experience working in Washington, D.C., really getting exposed to policy, advocacy work, and getting involved with organizations like the United Nations Association in the National Capital Area really helped me to find my voice, and not just find my voice and use it, but use it in a very informed way. I'm an elected member of the United Nations Association National Council. And so what that means is, you know, I get to support the leadership within the United Nations Association and help to advise and steer groups that are highlighting opportunities for advocacy, specifically for women and underrepresented groups. Right now, I'm a part of the steering group for the Diversity, Equity, Accessibility, and Inclusion Task Force, which was stood up shortly after Mr. George Floyd was killed. And so we are creating programs and opportunities that are transparent. The pathway to membership is transparent. The pathway to advocacy and leadership opportunities within the organization are very transparent, so that we have a platform that is very accessible to people who care about important issues like gender equality or accessibility and diversity and inclusion. And so that's part of the work that I'm doing with the United Nations Association. And I think naturally a part of that is making myself available to mentor and be a sponsor, if I can, to other women and underrepresented demographics who want to get involved and find their voice, and specifically with legislative advocacy, because that's also a big part of the United Nations Association, and something that really drew me to the organization as an active duty member is the fact that while I worked in the defense sector, I also cared about a lot of other things like clean water, clean air, gender equality, and I care about those things. And those aren't things that are necessarily a part of my everyday work when I was in uniform. And so every opportunity I get, whether it's on social media or whether it's face-to-face with a member in the community or a neighbor, I do share with them the United Nations Association and other organizations that they can get involved in to make their voice heard. And I think it's important to, when you have an opportunity to help somebody, help them find their voice or connect them with a platform where they can use their voice and really kind of grow as an advocate, then I think it's my personal responsibility. And I kind of think it's everyone's to do that. And so that's some of the work that I'm doing with the United Nations Association right now.
think sometimes that we in Hawaii feel disconnected at times from the rest of the world because
Yeah.
although we are a global society, here in Hawaii, all politics is local, right? They say, and so we have our kuleana to our aina, our land, our water, and oftentimes it's the mothers that we find are the ones leading these efforts, such as you are on the global scale. So, what I'd like you to do is possibly say one last word about how we can get from our local level to a global level and have those voices heard, those voices of mothers, and why it's important to hear the voice of a mother on a global scale, um, and how you see that as impacting the world.
Really great question, Shauna. So oftentimes what I've heard in a lot of different working groups and spaces where we're discussing gender equality and women's empowerment is, well, that's a woman's issue. And I couldn't disagree more, because if something is a woman's issue, it's a family issue, right? And so that means men and women and children are all stakeholders in the challenge. And so I think first and foremost, it's recognizing the stakeholders and stakeholders recognizing that they are a stakeholder, and I think that one thing I have found through the United Nations Association is that our voices collectively are so much more effective and louder than our voice as an individual. And by joining other like-minded causes like the Committee on the Status of Women or the NAACP or LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, you will, if you can find a space with other people that have the same shared values as a mother, as a woman, as a family member, right? Because we all belong to a family, whether it's our nuclear family or we're part of a ohana in the community. It's very important to connect with those like-minded people, because we will then be able to make an impact on a global scale. I know oftentimes it's just one person. It may feel kind of daunting or maybe even impossible to think that you can make a difference. But I think that we would be really surprised at the difference we can make, the impact we can make, not just in one person's life, but in a community and in a country, when we come alongside other like-minded advocates and community leaders. So I would encourage that. If you're not already a member of a local community group or local chapter, jump in and join. And I think you'd be really surprised at the opportunities that just need people to support and be a part of.
Excellent advice there. I know that coming from the military, a lot of times, you may not always feel a part of the communities you're in because you travel a lot.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that you're here in Hawaii for the time being, and that you are participating in our Mālama Makuahine project, because it's so important to hear from the mothers of our community, and especially right now, those who are in the military, because I don't know if I've heard many voices coming from mothers in the military, except for those who have lost someone. And so, hearing your voice today, I pray that others will hear the resonance of other mothers within your community, of the military, armed forces, the supports, and you are doing your part right now to support your husband and your community, and your work is not done. So we thank you for that. And again, we thank you for your service and all the work that you do with United Nations. for women, on behalf of those who have maybe not been able to say what they feel, but you have been able to voice those things, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shauna. Thank you for your leadership in the community, and thank you for working so hard at having 2022 recognized as the Year of the Mother in Hawaii County. It is so important to realize that a lot of the challenges that we're looking at, especially here locally in Hawaii, they're not just women's issues, they're family issues, they're they involve men as well. And so I'm just so excited to be able to support the Year of the Mother and to help to show one face of what one mother may look like on the island. And I'm so appreciative of being able to share a little of my story today. Thank you.
So mahalo, and we'll see you again soon, and happy Veterans Day.
Mahalo.
Can lend a helping hand. Love is fellow men, it's for everyone. Fathers and mothers, sisters and brothers have a special dream. Special dream. Let's change guns into guitars.